Hello, hello. Today I'm going to be working on very primitive animations. It'll be my first time trying to implement anything like this. The idea that I'm going to try and implement first is just a single sprite, and then I'm going to set up some code to display that sprite for a small window of time, and then have that sprite disappear. I'm going to start by just making a simple graphic in ASprite. I'm thinking, for example, if we have a player here and an enemy here, then I would like to draw some sort of animation either in this space here, so 16 by 16, but offset by half of a tile, or perhaps I will draw the animation just one tile over and I'll give it some alpha so that way you can see the enemy or whatever, like whatever tile is behind the animation. You can still see it a little bit, but it'll just be programmer art for now. You could have the sword kind of be here like this, and then the sword swing would be, coming this way. Would maybe draw a leading edge here. We want to do this sort of fill here like that. And that's going to be rather primitive, but that's going to be our sword swing. I think it might actually be fine to apply some non-maximal opacity in ASprite for the text boxes, and then modulate the opacity in SDL for things like animations. So we'll stick with this solid one for now. We've pasted in a new tile guy here. Okay, Big Atlas is exported. If I press Z to perform an attack, then I will display this animation. I'll kind of shoehorn the animation stuff into the action code here first, and then we can clean it up later once we figure out kind of how it all works. I'll create a new struct called animation. The struct is going to hold some timing information. When we start the animation on this frame, we don't want the animation to be one frame long, right? So we want it to take half a second or something like this. And that implies that when we come back through this procedure on the next frame, we need to know whether we're in an animation or not. We can just kind of kludge it for now, and we can add an animation component, perhaps. Might just borrow this for now. Okay, a super dirty way to do this would be to track the kind of animation inside of the animation, like attack. Animation type, for example, would be like attack, and then we'll have a type here, which will be an animation type. I'll add this to the components, I think, for now. I'm not sure if that's what we want to do long term, but it's what I'll do to expose this simply through the player. Array add array e.name is animation, and e.type is a collection of animations. Now, when we go to update states here, we'll look at the player, and what we'll say is this. We need to check the left seconds for attack as well. So if the type is attack and the animation left seconds is greater than 0.0, then similarly, we continue. We might need to extend this routine to also update the animation timer. If we are still animating, then we just continue. We don't allow the player to perform any other action or any other entities. So this isn't even a continue. This is a special one. This is a break here because we don't want to allow the player or the other entities to do anything if an attack animation is playing. The logic I just currently described is going to allow the player to stall the enemies infinitely, because the player always gets to go first, and the player can always stall enemies if they take an action. Well, I need to think about the order of this, in fact. We might need to do the update animation timer stuff first before we do the cooldown. Then I need to think about the effect of continue and the effect of breaking. Yeah, this is already a logic bug here. I think what I need to do actually is update both first. So here we'll actually set the animation. Prop type is attack. Yeah, we have to transition from attack back to idle at some point. EV animation prop type is attack. Then if EV animation prop left seconds is greater than 0, then we break. Otherwise, we say EV animation prop type is idle. Animation attack cooldown in seconds will just be half a second. Maybe we make it 1 second for now, because that'll just be easier to visualize. So the time left will be an animation attack cooldown seconds. I could have sworn that on that very first time through, I cleared an enemy that was not immediately in front of me. This guy, I'll press Z again and mash movement. Yeah, okay, wait, so we saw it there clearly. When I defeated that enemy disappeared. That was not the enemy in front of me. That was an enemy displaced by 1 tile, or I guess 2 tiles. Oh, because we're not breaking. We're not breaking when we actually perform the attack, right? I think that's the issue. So the enemies do actually get to move here. When we actually perform an action, we need to break still. If we don't break, what happens is this logic runs, I delete an enemy right in front of me, and then the enemy right behind him goes through his update position or update state logic, and he moves. He moves into the position of the enemy I just deleted, and it looks like I cleared an enemy behind me. I'll press Z here, boom, once. And now you see they didn't update at all. So this is the bug I was describing where I can basically infinite stall them. I'll press Z again, he's gone. Okay, so we'll come down here to render. What we need to do is check if the player is in attack animation, and then we will render that sprite on the screen. We also want the attack animation, or in this case, just that single sprite, to be rendered over everything. Maybe we loop through the entities twice, but for now, because we know it's just the player, we can just hard code this stuff. We'll just copy paste this. We'll call it render animation. And that reminds me, let's go into Atlas here. Animation tiles, I guess we'll call it. Big Atlas, index, animation, forward swing, sure. Now, it's only going to look proper when I'm facing to the right here for now, but we can use SDL to rotate. Now, we'll just draw one tile over from the player. We get the position X and position Y, and I think what we need to do is modulate this by facing direction. Complete EV facing prop is going to be case.up, then we will say the animation position dot Y is going to be a minus equal 1, I believe. So here, we'll pass in animation position dot X and animation position dot Y. This is going to be the big Atlas index animation sword swing. Then we render a texture. He's already rendering. Problem is I'm not doing this conditionally. If EV animation prop type is attack, and that's all we need to do. Build this, come in here. Now I'll press Z, and look at that, he's attacking. We'll just move this here, rotate this by 45 degrees. So you see this will be the initial sword swing. We swing the sword halfway, and then through the rest of the animation, we finish by closing it off like this. Use the marquee tool to grab these guys, cut this out, paste this in here, drag it there. Then I'll come back into Asset Jai, and I'll just call this start and end. I'll do basically what I described by making a supporting procedure. We'll call it get animation tile. It's going to take in an animation. So I guess I actually could take in an entity view or even just an entity type as well. Yeah, for now I won't do that. We can extend that later because for now I'll just pretend it's the player. And then for case idle, the question is what do we return here? Probably just assert false for now because that's not supported. But let's first just make sure that this logic works. So we'll return something really simple. We'll return sword swing end. This is curious. I pull this from asset, but somehow it's defined in the top level namespace. The Atlas index is going to be the get animation tile. And this takes our entity view, EV, animation prop. Now we will come back in here. I'll press Z and there we go. Although the index is messed up. We want to do a full swing, right? That's only a half swing. Oh, I mapped them to the same thing. So now what we need to say here is if the animation left seconds is greater than animation attack cooldown, that's a float, so we'll just divide that by 2.0. Then we will return sword swing start, and I'll build this and run this again, and then I'll press Z, and there you go. There's a kind of a simple animation. It looks funny. We don't want to render texture. We want to render texture rotated. We have a source, we have a destination. We're also going to need an angle. We're going to need a center. We're going to need a flip. For now, we'll just set this to 0, 0. Center is going to be set to null. Pass these in here as angle, center, and flip. We'll start with none, is dot none. And then what we will say is if the EV facing, I guess it's going to be left. I think I might have said right, but if it's left, then flip mode gets, I always forget whether flip horizontal means draw a line through the middle of the texture and flip that way. I'm going to assume that's what it means. So I'll say flip vertical. We can test that real quick. Okay, so it's not vertical, it's horizontal. The keep up angle is going to be negative 90 degrees. Oh, I'm shadowing angle here. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now it's correct. And then this guy here, I guess I would just rotate by 90 degrees for down. Should be set texture alpha mod here. Set an additional alpha value multiplied into render copy operations on a specific texture. So essentially, if we wanted to kind of fade out the animation, then we can just basically multiply the delta of the animation timing by some opacity value. So when we just started, we're going to have the same number on the numerator and denominator. Divide that by itself is going to be 1, essentially multiply 255 by 1. As prop seconds left, or the left seconds approaches 0, the term is going to approach 0, and then so will the alpha, so we will fade out. And let's build and run that. Now, my attack here, that's really dramatic. Let's get the text out of the way here. We can add idle animations and whatnot. The idle animation might have like the player bobbing or something like this. To make a bob in our case, we could basically just chop off one row of pixels from the feet and then move the character down. We will erase that part right there, and we will chop this off right here, and then we will just move him down one row. So he will appear to kind of bob and just put it right there in big Atlas. So if we go back into the code here, asset, we have the index player up, going to be up to, I guess. I don't really know what to call it yet. So right now we just assume that this is all the player, but we'll actually switch on the player. Then we just take this entire guy here and we paste it into player. We do need to take into account the facing direction as well. For now, I just want to show the proof of concept essentially of an idle animation for this character. And then after I do that, I think I will call the stream. Yeah, we need to transition animation states here, right? So we have this animation attack cooldown. I guess we'll also have animation idle cooldown. Idle cooldown. This guy, we can set him to 1 second. And when we transition to idle here, I think we need to set the idle cooldown again. We were in the attack phase, but we finished the animation. So we now transition to the idle animation and we set the animation idle cooldown. If our left seconds has reached 0, we need to reset it to the idle cooldown. The reason we reset the cooldown is because in the get animation tile, we're going to be checking if the cooldown is less than half or greater than half, I guess. And we'll be picking the correct tile to use based on that. I'm missing the facing direction though, so it's only going to work when we are facing down currently. But that's fine just for the proof of concept. So when it comes time to render, so we're gonna call get animation tile from render entity with facing direction as well. But it's not going to be implemented for any of the enemies or anything like that. It's only going to be implemented for the player, so we're going to hack it in here. Now what we're saying is if we are the player and we are an idle here, we need to do something similar to this guy right here. If it's greater than half the cooldown, then what we are going to do is return player down. Oh, I called it up to. This is actually down to, right? Else we return player down to. And we build and nothing happens. Oh, okay. It got me again. Shadowing always gets me. There it is. That should be good now. Build. There he is. Oh, he's bobbing. All right. Let's see if I press Z. Oh, that was interesting. So pressing Z renders it over me and over him. So we got a bug there. All right, so if I press Z here, the reason why we're drawing the attack over me is because I am getting the tile index for the player in the render entity with facing direction. Yeah, so I'll need to add some more logic or maybe break these apart. And so it's not an animation tile. The proof of concept is there. This is really what we wanted to see. So thanks so much for tuning in today. That's some basic animation stuff. My first time through it, kind of trying to get the feel for simple 2D animation. I hope to see you in the next stream. Have a good time until then. Peace.